Hello. Whew. It's been a moment. I'm coming to you from my home in Asheville, North Carolina, and very happy to say that things are slowly beginning to get a little bit back to a state of normalcy after the disaster of Hurricane Helene. I'm sure you've heard by now if you're a podcast listener, but my studio was totaled and it's taken a toll. But I think it's time to get back to serving you with tax information and financial and business setup information that you need. So today I'm going to do an episode on some of the takeaways I learned from being in an emergency situation and things that I recommend everyone, really literally everyone, do right now, this week, to be prepared for the moment when a disaster comes in your area. The reality is, I know we don't want to think about this, but climate change is making storms more serious than they have been in the past, right? I just experienced a 1,000-year flood. Um, and so the reality has certainly hit me very hard. And I hope that none of you listening ever have to experience that reality in the way that I and everyone near me has very recently. But I do want you to have what you need if it does happen, right? If you're in Texas and you get a freak freezing storm and your power goes out, right? And that happened. Or if you get, mudslides, wildfires, flooding like we experienced here. These are things that are on the horizon and they're getting worse. And I know that's a little scary to think about and you don't want to, but there are some things you can do to be prepared for it. And I want to just spend 10 minutes with you today telling you what I learned and just giving you a little shopping list for your hardware store so that and a little checklist for the next time you get an alert that there is a big storm or event coming towards you so that you can be all right. All right. So the first thing I want to say to you is that I think, if you're overly cautious and over prepared, that's a good thing. I know it can feel so silly. I felt so silly as this storm barreled down here. I felt so silly filling my bathtub and I almost didn't do it. And in fact, I was self-conscious. I didn't even want to admit to my husband or have him even notice that I was doing it. And yet it ended up being a life source for us because we lost our water, right? So we ended up living on that bathtub. And it was not so sure, it was not very certain for a little while there when we would be able to get out and get water, right? So filling the bathtub because a storm came, flooding, ironically, can tend to cause breakages in water lines, I just learned. And so fill your bathtub. Fill your bathtub and just accept that it's okay if you feel silly. It's okay if your partner thinks you're being anxious. I'm here to say it might be the thing that saves you. You might be very glad you did. So fill your bathtub and then when nothing happens, be so grateful that nothing happened and drain it and be so happy that you never needed it. That's what I would say about that. And in general, with all of these things, I really would prefer that you be more prepared rather than less because you can't go backwards. Once the disaster happens, you're stuck at that point, right? So you kind of have to do the stuff in advance. So here's what I want you to make sure you do, all right? Something you can do today, right now, is just go through your important documents, your driver's license, your car's license plate, your insurance numbers, your policy numbers. Go through all of those, the deed to your house, the deed to your car. Go through all of those things and just take a photograph of them. Just use your phone, take a photograph and put them in a secure, online accessible file, something in cloud storage, whether it's your Google Drive or Dropbox, something like that, where if you lost your computer, you lost your house, you could still log in, you could still access it, and you could have that information. I just witnessed the reason that you need that stuff. And when you file an insurance claim, when you talk to FEMA, you're going to need all of that stuff. And of course, the moment you need it could be the moment that it all got flooded and you can't access it anymore. So please, today, everyone who's listening, photograph all that stuff and stick it in a secure cloud storage place like Dropbox or Google Drive. All right. Okay. Um, Similarly, it's a really good idea to photograph your stuff. So if you have an office outside the home, a studio, um, just your house, just go around your house and like photograph what's there, photograph your yard, photograph the outside of the house, and stick it in that same folder with those, those secure documents. I know that this seems a little silly, but proving what was there before becomes very important after you've had a disaster, and you can't go back in time to take those before pictures. So it's a thing you can do. It's really easy. It'll take you 5 minutes. So just do it. Okay. Next, I think everyone should have, and again, this I learned personally, everyone needs to have some cash in the house. So when Hurricane Helene hit here, there were, roads closed. There was no water, no electricity, no cell service. It was really scary. And I think if people had panicked, it could have gotten even scarier. And we were all sort of, a little bit on edge, wondering if that would happen, right? That was a real possibility. So there were instances here in Asheville where people were lined up at gas stations when they opened for hours and hours and hours trying to get gas, right? So I learned, yes, the hard way, that before a disaster comes, fill up your tank, right? You hear that there's going to be a big hurricane coming, or you see that there are wildfires coming, fill up your gas tank, right? It's kind of not hard to do when things aren't in an emergency situation, but if they are, it can get bad. So people were waiting in line for hours, gas was running out, and the gas stations didn't have electricity, and so a lot of them couldn't take, or they didn't have internet, so they couldn't take credit cards. So the only people who ended up getting gas were people who had cash, and people would wait hours in line and they get turned away after waiting for hours because they couldn't pay in cash. So I would just recommend, if you're listening to this right now, put on your emergency checklist, get, $500 to $1,000 in cash and just keep it somewhere safe in your house. That is something I recommend everybody do. Okay. On top of that, it's a good idea when the actual, I also think that it's a good idea to just go to the hardware store and stock up on batteries in a bunch of different sizes. In our house, I'm really grateful that my husband already had done this. We just have this big Tupperware where we just like have a bunch of battery packs of all different sizes. And it's really nice because then when we need a battery, we have it. Something I wished I'd had when our power went out was a battery operated radio. We had no way to get the news. We had no cell phone coverage. And the only way we could get the news was to sit in our car using precious gas and listen to the radio. So if I'd had a battery operated radio, I would have felt, first of all, I would have had some entertainment, but that would have been nice to be able to get the news. So, a cheap little battery operated radio seems like a good idea now. Also, having a bunch of candles, that was really helpful. I've gotten a little woo since moving to Asheville, and I have a lot of candles, so I was good on that one. And also, your flashlight. So speaking of the batteries, make sure you've got plenty of flashlights and you know where they are, right? So make sure that if you get a storm warning or a wildfire warning, something like that, just make sure you've located your candles, your batteries, your flashlights. Okay. I want you to know where those are in the house for when the power goes out. I also want you to fill your bathtub for real, especially if it's a flooding situation, potentially, because your water going out is a big deal. Not having access to water is a much bigger deal than not having power. The other thing I learned the hard way in this storm was to charge all your devices before the storm comes, right? Losing power for a couple of days is one thing, but when you can't get on your phone, you can't contact anybody, you can't open your computer, and there's no way to charge it, that's a bummer. So the other thing I'll say for the actual moment of the storm is before the storm comes, charge up all your devices. All right. That's it. That's a short and sweet episode, but that is my tips and takeaways from a recent disaster here. Um, and just an easy checklist you can do while, the sun is shining and you're feeling good. And just this will be a little measure of protection for you if a storm comes similar to the one that I just experienced in Western North Carolina. Speaking of the storm in Western North Carolina, I am going to be, I'm not back to a state of normalcy. I know the rest of the world, the rest of you listening are. So I'm experiencing a little bit of a weird, disjointed feeling where I don't have drinkable water coming out of my tap and I don't have my kids in school. Things are a little weird for me. And, I need to talk about it maybe a little bit. And I certainly want to be here to help the people in my community. But I also recognize that if you're listening, this isn't happening to you and you still want the goodness of Sunlight Tax and me to be serving you with, what you come to listen to in this podcast in general. So I just want to, say to you, yes, I'm still in a weird world. But I am going to start pivoting my content, my Instagram, my YouTube channel, and this podcast back to, subjects that are, for getting ready for year-end tax planning and things like that. I will be interspersing a little bit of, stuff for people affected by disaster, and I'm trying to build up a library of content that's available for free to people about, FEMA aid, SBA loans, and filing amended returns for casualty losses and disaster losses that I hope you never need, but will stand as a resource for people in the future if you experience an emergency or natural disaster. And the reality is I need to keep my business going in order to keep my family okay. So it's time to get back to business for me because I need to support my family. And honestly, getting back to business and making sure that my clients feel really happy and well served, this is part of, just ensuring the health of Sunlight Tax ongoing. And that's important to me. As well as it's important to me to just serve you well. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that pivot. It's a bit of an awkward place to kind of be myself in a personal emergency and know that I'm serving people who are not. And that's okay. I don't want you to feel guilty that you are not living without drinkable water right now. But I'm here for you. And, your business really means a lot to me. It is more important to me now than ever. And, so with that said, I offered a bonus during this disaster period where I've been a little offline dealing with, mucking out my studio and, obtaining drinking water, things like that. I've offered a bonus that anyone who joins my program, Money Bootcamp, which is a really wonderful, comprehensive program to teach you how to handle your taxes and build your funds for the future. It also includes lots of great info on business setup. So it's really good if you're starting a business. It will teach you how to do it correctly and get all set up properly, legally, and get your tax systems in place. So it's good before you start the business. It's good for tuning up that stuff if you're already in business. And if you've been in business for a while and you're like, I think it's time to do the more adult version of this, it's also there for you for that. My program is, like I am, good at not talking down to you. I'm here because I've made all the mistakes. And I just want you to know that I really value the work that you do in the world and am here to teach you these things without any shame or judgment. So my program is active. It is rolling. It is about to get a bunch of new content. And I am excited for you to join. If you feel moved to join, I am going to offer my disaster bonus until this Thursday at 5 p.m. That bonus is a free one-on-one 30-minute one-on-one consult to talk about, it's an Ask Me Anything tax consult. So you can ask me absolutely anything you want about your tax situation, your business setup, anything at all. We can get nitty-gritty into your numbers, into your quarterly tax payments. We can review your tax return, whatever it is you want to talk about. So that free consult with me or with my trained and absolutely lovely tax advisor, Orion, is available through Thursday, the 24th of October at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. After that, you are still welcome to join, absolutely, but I am ending that emergency moment bonus this Thursday at 5 p.m. So please take advantage. If you've thought about joining Bootcamp, if you've ever wanted to, if you've, been on the fence about it and then thought, oh, I would love to, be there for Hannah in her moment of need, please, please do. You can join at sunlighttax.com/moneybootcampimpact. And anyone who joins before 5 p.m. on Thursday will get an emailed invitation and booking link for a free one-on-one consult. So take advantage of that. It's good for 2 more days, and I hope to see you on the inside of the program. All right. I will talk to you next week, everybody. Bye. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm so grateful for that. This video is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.